Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Today's video is going to be on who will see the snowiest December 2017. And December for some is the most snowiest month, but many it's January, but for some it is December. And so it is a pretty important month when it comes to snowfall. So let's get right into it. First off, let's look at the NAO forecast. And you may be wondering what the NAO is. I'll tell you guys in a minute. So, the predicted NAO, you can see it goes. The thing is, the predicted, the prediction is whether if it's going to be negative or positive. That's what it really matters. And for the next couple of days, it's going to be positive. But then for the much of December, rest of December, it's going to be negative. And you may be wondering, what does negative mean? Well, a negative means pretty much cold air across the eastern half of the states, and this is a negative NAO, and that's what we're predicted to do. So if you're wondering what an NAO is, I'll read this to you. In the NAO setup, negative NAO setup, a large upper high or ridge, sometimes a block in a jet stream, is over Greenland. This setup means a much colder pattern as the jet stream is forced to plunge south into the Midwest and East Coast, and the pattern favors bigger winter storms for the East Coast. So at the beginning, you may have been wondering, why does this have anything to do with the snow forecast? Well, as you can see, the negative NAO favors bigger winter storms for the East Coast. Not only the East Coast, but also storms and Alberta clippers for the Midwest. And usually those Alberta clippers can evolve into storms for the East. So another thing that is very important when it comes to snowfall outlook and cold temperature outlook is probabilistic ENCO outlook. So that is pretty much whether it's gonna be a La Nina, El Nino, or neutral. And as you could see, this was last updated November 9th, so pretty recently. La Nina conditions are predicted to continue 65 to 75% chance at least through the Northern Hemisphere winter 2017-2018, with a 51% chance of continuation through February and April 2018. But we're not worrying about February and April now because this is just a December snowfall outlook. But you could see November, December, January, where December is the main focus. La Nina is favored 70 to 80%. And you also may be wondering, what does that mean? This is what a La Nina pattern looks like. The jet stream, there's a high blocking pressure that usually develops in the northern Pacific Ocean that sends the jet stream to go down into the eastern U.S. So usually it's drier and warmer in the south. And this year I think it's going to be especially more during for the southwest. And it's wetter and colder in northwest, so that means more snow. And wetter and also colder, except this graphic doesn't show it, but wetter and colder for the east and midwest. And also another thing with the La Nina, if the La Nina has a jet stream usually somewhere around here where they're showing it, and that brings the perfect pattern for Alberta clippers. And Alberta clippers are these little small disturbances um, in the atmosphere, or in the pretty much in the weather system, that bring down from Canada, and they're called Alberta clippers because they're named after a ship that was an Alberta clipper, and that ship was very fast moving. And also these storms are very fast moving, and they usually originate from Alberta, Canada. So they're called Alberta clippers, and this is pretty much a very fast moving system with not that much moisture, but they can bring, if there's a lot of them, they can bring quite a bit of snow to the Midwest. And once they reach the coast, sometimes if the conditions are right, they can develop into monstrous nor'easters, which is absolutely pummel the Northeast. But that doesn't always occur. But if you have a La Nina, the more chances you have for getting Alberta clippers, and the more Alberta clippers you have, the better chances you have for getting a bigger storm for the Northeast. So that's why this matters a lot. And overall, I think this is how the pattern is going to look like for the month of December. And so maybe not as warm as they're showing in the Northwest, but I think that it'll definitely be cold in the East and warmer in the West. And I don't think it's going to be a typical La Nina pattern this December, because typical La Nina pattern usually somewhat goes from here to here. So the South is also warmer. But I think this time around, December will be Southeast will be colder. Um, the Northeast will be colder, including the Midwest and Upper Plains. Then the Northwest will be warmer along with the Southwest, but that does not mean that there will be less snow, or that there will be almost no snow, because there still will be snow. It's just that there will be below average snowfall for some of the areas, but it's the average is probably in some of the mountainous areas is so cold that even if it's a couple of degrees above average, it's still cold enough for snow. So snow will still occur in those areas. So that's why I have in this outlook I haven't marked more than the southeast, because the southeast rarely gets snow in December, or it does, but it just doesn't get as much as the northwest. So this is pretty much official December outlook for snowfall. I think the most snow will fall in the Midwest, Upper Plains, and Northeast. The main reason for that is the Alberta Clippers. The jet stream could bring in them. Then the nor'easters could develop because of that blocking NAO, negative NAO pattern, and because of the Alberta Clippers can develop into northeasters. So I think that the most snow will just be in the northeast, also due to the fact that it's going to be the coldest there. So any storms that pass through, they're going to turn into snow for most of these areas. And anywhere if you live somewhere on this border, like between the three colors, you're just in a battle zone between those two colors or three colors. So if you like live here in northeastern Oklahoma, you might be below average snow, but you also might have more snow. So you're like on a battleground. So there could be one storm that could change this whole thing. So depends how far the cold air dives south. But I think most of the northeast have confidence, fairly high confidence, to have the most snow. Then the southeast will have around average snowfall or none, because some average snowfall is none for like areas like southern Georgia. I think for December they have no snowfall, but for the whole winter they have some snowfall. But I think it's gonna be around average. If your average is zero, then you most likely will get zero. If you're supposed to get an inch of snow in December, then you're most likely gonna get an inch. Maybe a little bit above average, but slightly above average for snow for the northwest. And I think it's still gonna be slightly above average because there's just gonna be a lot of precipitation with it, and it's gonna be warmer than average, but still there's gonna be so much moisture there that there will be some cooler shots there, and those cooler phases will be filled with snow. So that's why I think it'll be slightly above average. And then the um, southwest will just be below average snowfall, because the La Nina pattern pretty much indicates that it will be just anywhere in the orange. It's just going to be drier, warmer, and no snow. And these areas don't get a lot of snow other than the mountains here, anyways, excluding northern Texas and Oklahoma and Kansas, because those aren't mountains and they still get some snow. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you learned something new. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully you now know what to expect for December. So please consider subscribing and liking the video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and see you guys on the next episode.